Hello, welcome to Film Dive Podcast, episode 54. I'm Brandon, you're Dana, and we're kicking off with the lockdown special. No.
Lockdown special.
So not lockdown.
Not anymore. We're not in lockdown. We're one of those companies that have decided, due to the lockdowns, we're going to try and continue this format moving forward, so that we can continue making the great content and the great conversations that all two of you that watch this like to hear.
Yes, that's right.
So here we are, remotely working together with the magic of technology bringing us together for this podcast.
Oh my God.
And in this podcast, we decided we were going to talk about the future of cinema. There's been so much that has changed in the past year. The way we look at content has changed, the business model has changed, and the studio system full stop has changed. And there's been a lot of pushback, there's been a lot of, toing and froing, but everything is pretty much changing. And so what this podcast is about is we're going to have a discussion about where we see the future of cinema going and how things can evolve over the next few years, over the next decade or so. Because it's something that we've discussed quite a few times in the past.
That's right. And we had this ongoing discussion and just amazement with how the world has changed, and more specifically the movie environment, and how it's just been this evolution to where we are now of trying to make it fit again back into society, I suppose.
It's a dual issue where we haven't really had this kind of issue before. We've had a recession, so we had the 2008-2009 recession, which we didn't in Australia. We didn't get that recession, but everywhere else did pretty much, where people were forced without work. But the issue with this one is we've got that, and it's worse. But also, we've got the physical distancing part of it, which means even though we're out of work, we can't even leave the house in a lot of situations, in a lot of countries. Again, Australia is probably one of the best off in that. Our cinemas are still open, but because the rest of all the other countries are shut, we don't really get the opportunity to see any of those films because they're never released.
That's right. It's just been like this dead flat line of movie releases, on the cinema, like the new stuff. It's all been pushed back, as we all know, all the stuff that was supposed to come out. So it's like just been this waiting game of like, and then things just keep getting pushed back, and then, they've announced, obviously, a few of the titles that were coming out again pushed pretty much straight to streaming, like what Disney Plus has been doing.
And that's been a real sort of issue within Hollywood. You've got these traditional Hollywood elitists, or I don't know what you want to call them, celebrities that see cinema as this thing we have to cherish, and it has to be in a room with hundreds of people. But the issue with that is that you have to be in a room with hundreds of people. And that's something that we can't do at the moment, and we won't be able to do at least for this year. And it'll take some time for confidence to rebuild in the industry. Meanwhile, these companies have to make money and they have to evolve. And it's not, even though the pandemic has increased the changing of this, the way we watch content, the writing was on the wall a long time ago. This has just really sped up that process.
It was always that thing in the background of like, the whole cinema experience is going to die one day. First, it was, I remember all the talk about how all these big films and franchises were just dominating, and that it was squeezing the market, and that eventually it was going to crash because people are going to get sick and tired of seeing the same kind of content or films. And, it was getting that way when we had a superhero film, along with CGI family films, all sort of sprinkled throughout the year. Then you had August, which was the horror stuff, but it was all started to repeat itself and become sequel-esque environment or reboot, and eventually that was going to sort of taper off. Like, we were kind of in the midst of obviously we were still in the midst of it at a big spike, and I think, I'm not too sure on the data, I haven't looked at it, but I do remember seeing some things here and there about how successful the cinema experience had been. And I know for a fact firsthand how successful it had been, because obviously going to the cinemas a lot, it was so busy.
Yeah. Yeah, huge. 2019 was probably the busiest year I've ever seen the cinemas. Like, you go there and it's just, you can't, if you haven't booked beforehand, you're not going to get a seat. It was just crazy. And if you wanted to see a certain film, chances are you weren't going to, even if you wanted to see like a smaller film, it was so hard to see a smaller film because
They're getting squeezed by the
were all
big
booked
ones.
out, and they worked out how to play the game so they can get the big ones seen by by night time, and they put the smaller ones on in the morning.
To be honest, I have enjoyed this. What's happened. I actually do like what's happened in that regard, because it was getting to a point where it was just ridiculous. Like, to put some positivity into the situation we're in, I think it's a good thing, and it's really made studios have to recalibrate. It goes to show that, like, things always have such a peak, and then all of a sudden it's a massive, whether it's a pandemic or recession or whatever, or, things always go up and down. And obviously the cinema experience will get up again at some stage. There'll be something that will kickstart that whole trend again. But it's going to be a few years away. I mean, maybe Avatar 2 might be the one, if James Cameron can think of a ploy to get people to sit in the cinemas again.
Probably one of the first videos ever done on our channel. I can't remember what it is. But it was one of the very first, might have been the second video ever done on the channel. It was about streaming and how streaming actually does open up a lot of doors for more creative films. You're not living and dying by the success, how much money it makes at the box office. It's a collective, all of the films combined on any streaming service is what makes or breaks a film. So if you've got a crappy film, or let's say not crappy, but doesn't do as well in the box office, it doesn't matter because it's been leveled out by all of the other content on that streaming service. So what that means is that all of these, studios or these streaming services can make risks and try new things, and we see a lot of that with Netflix. They try a lot of things. A lot of things don't work, but every now and then something does work. If we look at Disney Plus, and we've got, WandaVision, there's no way they would have done something as crazy as that if that was going to be a feature
not
film.
At all.
So having this chance, this opportunity
opened
to
up doors.
Open up doors, try new things, and it doesn't matter if it doesn't get all the viewers because there's so much other content which is keeping everyone subscribed.
Yeah, that's right. So it's a win-win really for everyone. Actually, it's sort of, it's all good really. It's actually a better scenario that we're in now than where we were before.
In terms of a business model, it is actually one of the best business models that have ever existed, because it is guaranteed. You've got, whatever it might be, 200 million subscribers, or 100 million, 80 million subscribers, and for a fact at the end of the month you're going to be getting money. When a movie is a gamble, really up until this stage, it's been a Russian roulette, it's been a gamble, it's been going to the pokies and hoping that the film makes money, has really been the business model up until now. And now we've finally got a business model that can, with streaming services, as much as I do enjoy the cinema experience, streaming services in terms of a business model is much better than what's been done.
Yeah, I guess we're getting to that point now where it's like, well, I'm just going to buy a massive TV, and a good sound system, and like,
I tell you, every time I go to the shops, I go to JB, and I'm just spending like 15 minutes looking at all the TVs, all the big giant, and they're so cheap now. Like, you can spend $1,000 and you can get this big giant TV that's bigger than anything I've seen.
I've been considering it for quite some time now, because I just, especially with a young son, my son being so young, I can't take him to the cinema. So it had been dead for me anyway. Like, it was a luxury for me all of a sudden to be able to get to the cinema. And I used to be there.
I reckon that's what it's going to be. The cinema is going to be one of those things that is... it's not going to be you do it 2 times a week like we were. It might be you do it, once every few weeks or once every month.
That's what it will be.
And it is more of an experience rather than just this thing where it was you're there all the time. And that, I know for me, that's what it was. Especially in peak season, summer season in the US, like just seeing so much content.
Like I was taking my partner to the cinema at least 12 times a year, you know. I remember like 2000, just the year before my son was born, like 2 years prior to that, we were pretty much seeing everything, you know, like...
Yeah, anything.
We'd go out for dinner.
Don't know if it was any good.
Just go out for dinner, go see
right.
the movie, whether it was good or not. You know, it was just fun. But now it's like, well, it's not, you just can't do it now.
I don't think we'll see as much content. It's going to be less content in the cinemas. More content online, less content in the cinemas, probably. This is my guessing here. We won't see a greatest film of all time anymore because there just won't be as many people wanting to go to the cinemas. But having said that, we'll see where things land in a year or two once this pandemic is all over and we can all get on with our lives.
I'm sure it's going to spike right back up again at, you know, once the pandemic kind of blows over a bit. You know, you got the young'uns and all the young people and, you know, even older people and stuff that'll probably get to a point where they're just like, no, society, you know, things always take a bit of time and, you know, time heals and people forget and people adjust and all of a sudden it's just like things are back to normal again. And it will get to that point. It will. Yeah. I'm sure it will.
You read on the headlines, this is the death of cinema and it's gone forever. And it's all very, you know, hyper, you know, sensitive, hyper, you know...
bleak.
Everything's hyped up to the stage where you think it's gone forever. But I think things will level out. You know, obviously there's a trend of people watching more things online. We will find a new normal. I believe we will. And there is no such thing as winner takes all. So the cinemas have their place. Streaming has their place. And I think more of the competition with streaming, less DVDs, less cable, less live TV, more on-demand stuff. And I think that's the direction. But in terms of cinema versus, you know, streaming, I think it will level out and there'll be a new normal in a few years or so.
I guess we're going to see.
And one thing I want to bring up, I just got this email this morning, and it sounds a very interesting concept by Disney Plus. And this might be where the future's going in terms of what the streaming services, you know, what their direction for a streaming service is, you know. The thing with streaming services is that it's always seen, other than, you know, you might be with a partner or your family watching a film or something, it is a very insular experience. You're watching something in your living room by yourself or a small group of people, and that's what it is. And so Disney Plus, I got this email, and they've got this new feature called Group Watch, and it basically, here it says, watch together even when you're apart.
Right.
And it basically allows you to watch something, a group of you, let's say you've got 5 friends and you all got Disney Plus, and you all want to experience The Mandalorian together. Then you can all join a room or, you know, that kind of idea. You can all, you know, be invited to stream a TV show or a movie at the exact same time so that you can experience it and you can talk about it. And, you know, because it's always that thing when all your friends have seen something but you haven't had a chance to, and it's like, stop talking about it because I haven't seen it yet. This sort of solves that issue where it allows everyone to watch something at the exact same time. The other thing it does, it allows, let's say if someone needs to go to the toilet, you can pause it and it's going to pause it for everyone. So everyone can have a break. And it allows you to, you know, do things like emoji in real time, so you can react in real time to parts. And it's more of an inclusive experience. So I think that's a very interesting feature, and it's very forward thinking and very clever of Disney Plus to come up with an idea like this.
And I just thought, of course Disney is going to do it. You know, they're onto this sort of thing. They're Netflix and all those guys, you know. I don't understand. Like, Disney are just so onto it when it comes to that family entertainment sharing, and, you know, they've got to, I guess they have to. They're the ones that have to do it because it's their brand.
The inclusive nature of anything to do with Disney Plus, you know, Disney full stop, so I should say Disney, is that you've got the theme parks. That's all about spending time together. You know, traditionally going to the movies has been spending time together.
It's a good business model.
And this is just an extension of that. You know, spending, even though you might not be, especially now in the pandemic, you might not be able to see your friends, but you can all watch something at the exact same time, enjoy it, talk about it, text each other during it, and being like, what did that person just say? Oh my god. having an experience, and then after it, you call each other up and have a chat for an hour about it. Like, you know, you and me, like me and Brandon have done a few times with some shows. And then you don't have that awkward moment. It's like, oh, we all have to watch it before we can talk about it, because you've all experienced it at the exact same time.
That's cool.
So it's going to be interesting to see how social features like this expand into, you know, for other services, and what it might end up being in the future, whether it's just going to just be a small feature like this, or it becomes more of a prominent, you know, thing where we do start seeing more of these social aspects thrown into these services, because they have been a very simple model. It's basically a library. It's really you're paying to get access to a library, and there hasn't been too much in terms of social features. So it's going to be interesting if they have a part to play where it might morph into more of a social media as well as a streaming service.
That's true. It's quite possible. Yeah, absolutely.
Time will tell. But personally, if we're going to sum up exactly the direction, I think it's going to be an increase in terms of the business model. There's going to be a bigger push towards there will be a bigger push towards everyone on streaming, and that's a better model for them. They're going to be a more successful business out of it. Will make more money, and it's a more safer business. However, all of the big giant films, I can't see them not making those in a hurry. I think they will always be made, and even if we do see this, you know, like the Disney Plus have their model where it's premium, you can pay $35. Not that many people will do that, but that exists, that idea. You pay $35 to see a film first run, or you wait a few months for it to be accessible. I think that might continue, as well as being on the cinema screens. So that's probably, at least for the near future, that's probably going to be Disney's game, is to have those two options available.
Yeah, that makes sense to me.
And since we've been talking for so long, I think we'll cut it in half. So we'll leave it here. And if you want to listen to the rest of this conversation, we'll talk about it in our next podcast. So make sure you're ready to listen to the continuation of this conversation in that podcast. If you're listening to this on any of our podcast channels, make sure you jump online and watch our YouTube, where you can see us in the flesh.
Yes.
Whether that's a good thing or not, that's up to you. Make sure you leave some comments if you are watching it on our YouTube. Thanks for watching or listening, and we'll see you in the next one.
Adios.
Thanks for watching Mini Academy Online. If you'd like to explore more of our content, click on this or click on that. Like and subscribe, thumbs up, ring bells, do a dance, sing a song, drink a hot cup of tea or coffee, and I'll see you in the next one.